Okay, my dear learners. At first, I'm trying to clarify about finite verbs. About finite verb. Of course, I know that, my dear learners, you know well about various kinds of functions of a finite verb, but I want to just cooperative. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. Or words finite verb. Finite verb. Of course, you know that, my dear learners, finite verb means Somapika Kriya. Somapika Kriya in Bengali. We know that, my dear learners. If we want to define this category of verb, we may write that in this way. Um, Finite verb is a verb which can express the meaning of a sentence entirely and can be changed according to subject, person, number, and tense. Okay, my dear learners, if we want to define this categories of verb, we can say that, my dear learners, finite verb is a verb which can express the meaning of a sentence entirely, and can be changed according to subject, person, number, and tense. And about these categories of verb, to solve various kinds of problem, I have written about some example, my dear learners, of the you have understood clearly. My dear learners, first example I have written: Rohim is a good student. Rohim is a good student. Number two, I am a good student. Number three, we are good students. Look at the board and try to understand. So I want to say that, my dear learners, these three categories of example used the verb each am are. Each am are. Of course, a finite verb. Of course, a finite verb, because, my dear learners, according to my mind, these three categories of verb, of course, used in present tense. In present tense, H are. These three categories of verb are used in present tense, and according to person, it makes sense. Suppose all time after subject after I will have to use am, and other case subject singular number will have to each, and plural subject plural number will have to use are. Okay, my dear learners, and there are various kinds of activities with the manager in various kinds of sentence. You can see that, my dear learners. In these three categories of sentence, among these three categories of example, my dear learners, here subject to him. So according to subject and verb agreement, you will have to use is. Okay, my dear learners, but when I have used I instead of Rohim, the verb will be am, and when I have used instead of Rohim oi, verb is are. Okay, my dear learners, of that you have understood clearly. And these three categories of verb and is of course finite verb, because these three categories of verb may be changed according to subject, person, and number. subject, person, and number. That you have understood clearly. My dear learners, next example number 4 and number 5. I have written example number 4. Rohim was a good student. Rohim was a good student. And number 5, we are good student. Good student. In these two categories of sentence, two categories of auxiliary verb are used, such as was and wasn't oil. You have to mind that, my dear learners, according to subject and verb agreement, we'll have to use was verb at the case of singular subject, and we'll have to use auxiliary verb or at the case of plural subject. Plural subject. Okay, my dear learners, in this sense, I have used suppose Rohim. Suppose Rohim. Rohim opposed third person singular number. Third person singular number. For this reason, was is used after Rohim in this sentence. And but when I have used we instead of Rohim, we'll have to use were. And in this sense, at the time of using was oblique were instead of am is are must be changed into tense because was oblique were of course used in first tense. First tense was and were are used in first tense, but is are used in present tense. Of the two, you have understood clearly. And in this sense, was and were, of course, finite verb. Of course, finite verb. Of that, you have understood clearly. My dear learners, next, two categories of example I have written the word number 6 and 7. I have written we have gone to school. We have gone to school. And next example, we had gone to school. You have to mind that, my dear learners, have is used have plus V3. Have plus V3 is used in present perfect tense, but had plus V3 is used past perfect tense. And just after using had instead of had must be changed that tense from present perfect to past perfect. In this sense, I want to say that, my dear learners, have and had these two categories of verb used in two categories of sentence, of course, are finite verb of the two. You have understood clearly. My dear learners, next three example, my dear learners, try to understand. I'm trying to clarify about the reason of three categories of verb go, goes, and wait. Why these three categories of verb are finite verb. My dear learners, I have written in example number 8, we go to school daily. But instead of we, when I have used Raisa, then instantly I'll have to add es with verb go. But when I have used instead of Raisa we, and at the time of changing tense from present indefinite to past indefinite, I will have to use orange. Of course, you know that, my dear learners. Go if any sentence is possessed verb V1 present indefinite, but V2 if verb 2 or V3 V3 form of verb is used in a sentence, of course, past indefinite tense. At the time of when I have used verb V2 form of verb go and instantly this category of tense must be changed into from present indefinite to past indefinite. So, my dear learners, you have the two, you have understood clearly. And finally, I want to say that, my dear learners, we can see various kinds of verb in our English grammar, and among various kinds of verb, which verbs are tense can be changed according to their subject, person, number, and tense are called finite verb. That you have understood clearly. And I may suggest to you, my dear learners, every verb has various kinds of form, various kinds of forms, such as V1, V2, and 3. Every verb has three form of verb, such as V1, V2, and V3. And among the categories of form, only V1 and V2 form are called finite verb. Are called finite verb. That you have understood clearly. My dear learners, now think about a non-finite verb. A non-finite verb. If we want to define this verb, we'll have to write that, my dear learners, non-finite verb. We'll have to mind that in the Zoya, my dear learners, non-finite, uh, non-finite verb is a verb which can express the meaning of a sentence entirely and 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 can be changed according to subject, person, number, and chance. Okay, my dear learners, if we want to define our non-finite verb, you'll have to mind that, my dear learners, we can say that, my dear learners, non-finite verb is a verb which can express the meaning of a sentence entirely, and can't be changed according to subject, person, number and chance. And to clarify about this various kinds of problem, I have written a few examples on the board. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. My dear learners, at first I'll have to write number 1 and 2. I have written about, my dear learners. Raisa is learning English. Raisa is learning English. And the second example, Swai was learning English. Try to comprehend that, my dear learners. These two categories of sentence possessed each plus verb ing. Is plus verb ing and was plus verb ing. Of course, you know that, my dear learners, the structure of present continuous tense, am is plus verb ing. Present continuous tense, and was plus verb ing, of course, first continuous tense. Okay, my dear learners, yeah, first example is for this is I have written is, but in number example 2 I have used was. In this sense, present continuous tense changed into past continuous tense, but, my dear learners, there is no any change of this verb learning. In this sense, I want to say that, my dear learners, in this between these two categories of sentence used for learning, of course, are non-finite verb, because in these two categories of sentence there is no any change of this verb learning. In this sense, I can say that, my dear learners, verb ing, of course, are non-finite verb. Verb ing, of course, is a non-finite verb, my dear learners. Next two example, my dear learners, number 3 and 4. I have a chicken chair. I have chicken chair. Next example number 4. I had chicken chair. You have to mind that, my dear learners, the structure of present perfect tense have has plus V3 is equal to present perfect tense, but had plus V3, of course, past perfect tense. Okay, my dear learners, between two categories of sentence, fine, I have used had instead of had instantly. Present perfect tense change is change into past perfect tense, but there is no any change of V3 form of verb. V3 form of verb. Example number three. V3 form of verb taken has been used. Similarly, cage happens here. So, my dear learners, between two categories of sentence taken verb, of course, are non-finite verb. I want to suggest that, my dear learners, all categories of our V3 form of verb are called non-finite verb or culture non-finite verb. Of that you have understood clearly. My dear learners, next example I have written, we go to school to meet Ronnie. And example number says, we went to Dhaka to meet Ronnie. From these two categories of example, in mind that, my dear learners, the structure of present indefinite tense, of course, V1, but the structure of present past indefinite, of course, V2, subject plus V2 plus extension, and the subject plus V1 plus extension. Look at the board and try to understand. I have used orient instead of go verb. Instantly, this category of present indefinite tense into change into past indefinite tense. But among though this category of has been changed into past indefinite tense, but there is no any change of verb to mature. In this sense, I want to suggest to you that, my dear learners, 2 plus v1, that means infinitive. 2 plus v1 is called infinitive. Infinitive. Of course, a non-finite verb of the jaw. You have understood clearly. My dear learners, I don't want to learn the English class, but I want to share some information with you, my dear learners. From this class, you'll have to mind that, my dear learners. Shortly, I want to suggest to you, my dear learners, verb, ing, very form of verb, and 2 plus v1, that means infinitive, are called non-finite verb. And except these three conditions, suppose v1 form of verb and v2 form of verb, these two conditions, of course, finite verb. Of course, finite verb at the key of all sentences of the two. You have understood clearly, my dear learners. I don't want to learn into this class, but before finishing today's class, I want to share something with you, my dear learners. Of that, I'm a new teacher in YouTube channel. Though I'm a Bangladeshi by birth, but I'm trying to use English conversation at the time of making various kinds of video classes. So, my dear learners, if you notice any faults or mistakes in the midst of my video classes, please excuse me and pray to all my channel so that I can help you, I can cooperate you in this way through my various kinds of video classes throughout my life. So, my dear learners, no more today. Come to see again with a new version of the new class. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.